Next up on stage is an old, well, not too old, is an old Gritlit favourite, Ed Siegle. He was actually involved in the first and second Gritlit, and Gritlit has been running now for 3 years. So Ed Siegle's debut novel, Invisibles, which is actually available just over there on the table, has been published by Myriad Editions, is a winner of the V.S. Pritchett Prize. His short stories have been published in the Illustrated Brighton Moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Ed Siegle.
Thank you very much. I'm going to read an extract from my novel Invisibles, which, as might have been mentioned, is on the table over there, in case you don't have it. The novel concerns a guy called Joel, who was born in Rio, in Brazil, and fled the country in 1975 with his mother Jackie when his father was taken away by the military. And he discovers in the present day that his father might still be alive, and so he goes back to Brazil to find him. And this extract deals with Jackie's thoughts about Gilberto and their relationship in Brazil. Jackie tried not to think about Gilberto, but Joel's mission aside, she was going on a date, and she always found it impossible to think about a new lover without old lovers posing questions. The most awkward ones were set by thoughts of the good times with Gilberto. She couldn't kid herself, such times had never existed, but how much easier if they could be forgotten. It was hard to live with the fact that her life was so defined by him, someone she'd known so many years ago, a person with such significance that he'd split her life into before and after. She had to admit those first few months were the finest of her life. She felt like a renegade, thousands of miles from home in the bed of a man who sang like a nightingale, living through the infancy of a religion, as the god Samba raised the holy sun, Bossa Nova, in the holy land of Rio de Janeiro. And as the world dreamed of the girl from Ipanema, Jackie was that girl right there, tall and tanned and young and lovely, walking to the beach by day, listening to the nightingale by night. Soon it was 1964, and even the coup seemed gentle, stealing in on April the 1st, bearing only baby teeth. They read of tanks in the streets that year, but also of Bardot in Buzios, where Jackie and Gilberto would spend weekends in a place with windows that opened over the waves. Gilberto had mostly sung covers of Sinatra and Davis, Bennett and Presley, but now he took to singing the compositions of Lyra or Lobo, Vinicius and Jobim, Menescal and Boscoli. And even if his own songs did not go down so well, it was great to carouse the city by night and see Nara or Betania singing in a show, to feel Gilberto was part of a scene to rival any in the world. Joel was born in Ipanema Hospital on the 17th of July, 1965. He came at 5 to midnight as Gilberto was singing Only for You, a song he'd written in his honour in a new venue in Copacabana. Gilberto arrived at dawn, and together they gazed through tired eyes at the swaddled infant. Then Gilberto sang Only for You in his softest voice, as Jackie clasped his hand and felt full to the brim with hope. They decided to call the baby Joel, in honour of Jackie's late Uncle Joseph and Gilberto's all-time favourite flamenco player. Joel grew, crawled, walked. He said his first word, mama, on a Sunday afternoon to a song by Caetano Veloso and Gal Costa called Sunday, which Jackie took as a sign of great intuition, though it made Gilberto crush the limes for a caipirinha with extra vigour at the thought of those Bahians inspiring his own child. Wasn't it enough, he ranted as he smashed ice wrapped in a towel against the kitchen worktop, that this Bafia was stealing the livelihoods of musicians in Rio, without them thieving words from the mouths of children? Why did the world revolve around Bahia? What was wrong with the music of Minas Gerais, his homeland? If you weren't from Bahia, if you didn't dress like a freak, none of the producers was interested. Caetano, Betania, Gil, Gal. With each name he smacked the ice-stuffed towel. Joel toddled and stars were born, but Gilberto wasn't one of them. Gilberto and Jackie were finally married in Tiradentes in November 1967, 3 streets from Gilberto's childhood home, in a simple service with a couple of Rio friends and a few of his old neighbours. Afterwards they dined in the garden of a mansion where candles burned under brugmansia trees, pungent with trumpet flowers. The locals adored Gilberto's songs and lauded him for his success on the Rio scene, and Jackie was happy to humour them. Jackie loved watching father and son together. When he played games with Joel or read to him, Gilberto seemed a different man from the one who kicked the door closed late at night, the same door Joel would run towards when he heard Gilberto's key in the lock upon his return from work. They looked so similar to one another, the brown of their skin, their pale eyes and uncontrollable hair. How could you love one and not the other? She would always remember the time they rode up Sugarloaf in a cable car Gilberto had hired just for the three of them. Joel had run round and round inside as the glass box soared above views of the city, the beaches, the sea. She remembered Gilberto pointing out that the trees on the slopes below had leaves of more than one shade of green, predominantly dark, but daubed here and there with shades of lime, which gave them a livelier feel than uniformity could have achieved. Sometimes when she looked at trees, Jackie still thought about that ride. 1968 was a year full of promise, in spite of the new military regime, and though at times it was frightening to be stopped at roadblocks, to be asked for papers, to read of punishment and disappearance, trouble seemed largely removed from their own lives. Gilberto was earning more, and they moved into a larger apartment with a maid and a service lift, nearer the lake and closer to Agaiola, the club where Gilberto would sing his own songs to warm applause. They became part of a loose crowd which hung around beaches on the fringes of Rio at weekends and spent evenings in Copacabana. Gilberto sang a couple of times at Teatro Jovem and once was complimented by Aloysio de Oliveira. One Sunday afternoon a melody came to him, and then a rhythm, and he started to sing a song to Joel which he knew at once could become a sensation. Jardim Jardim it would be called. A ballad of love and fatherhood in a garden, with a smooth vocal, a hint of samba, a sexy rhythm. He would show them all. It would be the making of the meanest sound. One night, Gilberto sang Jardim Jardim at Agaiola. When he came back, far into the night, he opened the door with soft hands and unleashed a tropical storm of kisses upon a sleeping Jackie. He told her that by chance a patient of his had been in the audience, Angelica Branca, the wife of a major in the army, a woman with first-class connections in the music scene. Angelica was ahead of her time, Gilberto said. One of those modern women, neat skirt, flat shoes, flat-curved American hair. Jackie said she knew the type, though she wasn't sure she did and was pretty sure she didn't want to. He said that Angelica knew an impresario with a club in Copacabana who was on the lookout for modern talent. Angelica couldn't promise anything, but she would have a word in his ear, she said, because there was something fresh and original about Gilberto's music. Angelica liked the fact that he came from Minas. Angelica's father came from Ouro Preto, because Minas folk were dependable, prudent, not given to advertising themselves, but supremely deserving. Over the next few weeks, he saw Angelica frequently. Angelica knows the business, he would say. She's teaching me how to play the game. Then one night he announced that Friday would be the night. He would meet Angelica for dinner. She would brief him and they would hit the club where the impresario would give Gilberto a private audience. If all went well, she would sing Jardim Jardim to the public that night. There would be TV people in the audience, she said, and record company boys from Odeon and Philips. Gilberto chirped all week about Angelica, his prospects of a record deal, his dreams of playing Carnegie Hall. When Friday arrived, Gilberto spent an age slicking his hair and making sure his clothes looked just right. Jackie wanted to come along, but he said this was business, not pleasure, that there would be plenty of opportunities for them to bathe in the moonlight of his success. So when he left, she closed the door behind him and sat on the balcony smoking cigarettes she'd secretly bought, listening to people pass in the street talking excitedly, because it was Friday, because they were Brazilian. And Jackie remembered asking herself how she had come to be a person who listened to other people being happy. On the very night their lives were supposedly taking a turn for the better, she felt further from home than ever before. She stood and looked into the street, then went and sat on Joel's bed and stroked his hair and watched his stirrings for a while. How easy it would be, she thought, to fetch my passport from the drawer, take some money from the safe and get a taxi to the airport. All it would take would be for my legs to make me stand and my hands to collect the necessary things on my behalf. I could change my life back to the way it was before. Joel would miss me, but he'd be all right with his dad. It would be a good place for him to grow up. His life might well be better without the burden of an unhappy mother. One day, he would understand. But it wasn't possible for her legs or arms to make that move because they were frozen by her love for Joel. And no matter what suffering it meant, she knew she could never leave him behind. And she couldn't just take him away without organising a million things, so she'd simply have to make the best of it. But there would be no siblings to go with Joel, she decided that night, out on the dark balcony at the end of her packet of cigarettes. She would not bear Gilberto another child, no matter how well this business with the music went. She would take the pill, whatever the risks. She would give her true love to Joel and a cover version to his dad. When Gilberto returned, not long before dawn, to breathe fermented breath on the back of her neck, Jackie pretended she was asleep. He hummed one of his tunes and pressed himself into her. For the first time, Jabeki thought, "I hate you." And it burned her beautifully to think the words, whatever nonsense anyone said about love, love, love. So she thought them again and again and again until she fell asleep. Cheers.
Ed Siegle, everybody.